Evening all, welcome to Sunday night as Organ Music Night. The camera is way too far over in that direction. Hold on a second. Let me just quickly get over here and do that. That's slightly better. It's still a bit low, isn't it? Either that or I've grown. Good evening everybody, welcome to Sunday night as Organ Music Night. Tonight we're going to have a look at some lovely things called organ registrations. I get a lot of comments from you all asking about certain sounds that the organ can make, why, and what are my favorites, and what do all the stops do, what do they all sound like, are there certain combinations you're allowed to use, are there certain combinations you're not allowed to use, etc, etc, etc. And I thought I would ask you in a little poll there, what are your favorite stop combinations? 31% of you, 32% of you said strings, 32% of you said tuba and shamads, 27% of you, a small portion, said tutti, and 8% said something else, comment. So let's just stop that for the moment and see what you said back in the chat there. Shall we have a look? See if anyone said anything back in the chat. If you did, repeat your message please later in the chat, like now, and put my name in it, at Fraser Gartshore, and then your comment, and then I will know, so I can catch up with it. How about that? Right, fun stuff. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a little bit of sort of demonstration of organ sounds, organ stops, and in context, all right? So I'm not just going to go, this is an 8-foot flute, and play some notes on it. We're going to do it in context. Now, this evening's concert began with a lovely, lovely hymn, Salve Regina. I think we all know what that's all about. Gegrüßet seist du Königin. Hail Mary, basically. You have an echo on the voice. Lucky you. You've obviously got two versions of me running somewhere, Ian. Ian's having all sorts of problems with his things tonight. I suspect you have two of me. There's only one of me here. There's only one microphone. There's no echo here. There can't be. It's impossible. So there you are. What stops were on that scratchy sound like a short circuit? Yeah, it was just too much. We're on Billerbeck tonight. Let's look at that first of all, actually. That's a very good idea. Everyone loves the loud stops. 32% of you said tuba and shamads. Now, on Friday night, we were talking about the shamads. Those are the stops. They're sort of huge trumpets. Vertical. I will do that again. Fanfare trumpets, if you like. Yes, so when the king arrives or whatever, you get all that kind of parpy stuff, all right? Now, a tuba, on the other hand, this is a bloody big tuba on this organ in Billerbeck. It's too big, does that make sense? It's got a much more parpy sound to it. Parp, parp, parp. Does that make sense? It can be used as a solo set. It shouldn't be used with huge chords, and it certainly shouldn't be used with 16-foot, 8-foot, and 4-foot. That is what caused the digital crackling. That was actually the internals of Hauptwerk going, stop, stop, stop. It wasn't the digital equipment, it wasn't the things here. Everything's got broadcast quality limiters on it here. So the only thing that burst there was basically the PC. The internals of Hauptwerk, it's just too loud. I could theoretically go in and turn the tuba down a bit in my Hauptwerk mixer, but that's just a pain in the butt to do live, so I won't. So yes, tubas and shamads. We had those the other day as well. Those are going to be the biggest, loudest solo stops. And you can hear that in the acoustic going bananas. Ian, shamads, horizontally mounted trumpets designed to startle elderly choristers and walkie, I'm sure you mean wake, and wake sleeping members of the congregation. Yes, that's true. That's exactly what they're designed for. This organ has 3. It has an 8-foot. They've got Spanish names, trompeta real, trompeta magna, which is the 16-foot one, and the trompeta clarin, the clear sounding. So 16, 8, and 4. Which is bananas, man. It's absolute bananas. Too much, but lovely. Now, the softest sounds. I started this evening's concert with a very, very soft sound, which we will come back to in a second. The other thing that you loved was strings. Now, what makes a string sound on an organ? Well, I was going to say there are 2 types of organ pipes, but that's wrong. There are actually at least three types of organ pipes. It depends how you classify them. There could be up to 6 or 7 different types, families of organ pipes. But in this organ, for example, we have 3. We have, let's just say we have the diapason sounds, the open pipes that, the things you see in the facade of a church organ, the things that look like organ pipes. Okay, and they are just round, normally metal pipes, and they operate much like a flute, an orchestral flute. You blow across, wind is blown across a hole, causing a column of air to start doing its thing. Okay, and that gives you your sort of basic organy sound. Then you have the reeds. We just had some reeds, are things there, but the trumpets, the tubas and the oboes, and the clarinets. All right, and they operate literally like a clarinet. There's a column, the pipey bit, but there's a little foot bit, and that foot bit has it's got the reed in it, and it's a single reed like a clarinet or a saxophone, and that's the bit that you use to tune the reed. And this bit, the long pipey bit at the top, that just determines the kind of sound it's going to give you. However, this organ has a third type, and that's called a free reed, like a harmonium or an accordion. Okay, so those are the 3 families of pipes we have on this organ. Now, let's look at the flue pipes. That's what you call the F-L-U-E, by the way, flue. It's like a chimney, yeah? So like your diapasons, your open flutes, your string sounds. So let's start with the string sounds. Now, what makes them sound stringy? Well, an 8-foot pipe, an 8-foot diapason. When you play middle C on the organ, that corresponds to middle C on the piano, all right? So A440, in other words. This organ is indeed 440. Okay, so that is middle C, 8 foot, all right? The bottom pipe, that one there, of this rank of pipes, this row of pipes, all 61 of them, I think there are, yes, there are 61 of them in this, all 61 of them. They're all voiced to sound the same, but this one here will be 8 feet in length, so about 5 meters, all right? 8 feet in length. So an octave higher, that pipe will be 4 feet in length. An octave higher, that pipe will be 2 feet in length. That pipe will be 1 foot in length. That'll be about half a foot, 6 inches. That'll be a quarter of a foot, about 3 inches, all right? Get the idea? So, if we now go to what's called a 4-foot stop, it's the same sound, but it starts with a 4-foot. So that's 4, that one will be 2 feet long, that'll only be 1 foot long, that'll only be 6 inches long, that'll only be 3 inches long, that will only be 1.5 inches long. Get the idea? I can then go up to a 2-foot stop. That will be a 2-foot pipe, a 1 foot, 6 inch, 3 inch, 1.5. What's half of 1.5? You know what I mean. Incredibly small, okay? Very, very tiny little pipe up there. And the very elderly members of the audience might not even be able to hear that anymore. No, I'm sure you will. You should be fine. So, we're talking Pythagorean stuff so far, all right? And as something goes up an octave, its height or its length halves. All right, now back to our diapason-y sound. That will be a relatively wide diameter pipe. All right, it'll look, you know, like a big meaty organ pipe, no worries at all. But this thing here, the viola, now, can you hear the difference there? We have that's got a big, sort of lovely juicy sound, whereas this has got a thinner sound. Here's another stringy sound. But it's not as thin, so nice and thin. Not quite as thin. I suppose we have this one. Somewhere in between, all right? Somewhere in between. And then, of course, you have your big fat pipes. Or even fatter. Okay, now they're all the same pitch of pipe, but the dimensions of the pipe, the diameter of the pipe dictates the tone of the pipe. So the thinner it gets, the thinner the sound, the stringier the sound becomes. Okay? So, there you have it. That's that. Now, with the strings, there's something rather wonderful on pretty much every organ from a certain date. Let's say every romantic organ or thereabouts. All right? Things like this do exist on older organs as well, but it became mainstream a bit later. What you have is, you have one rank of pipes. Now that sounds a bit stringy, especially as we get to the top end. Yeah, that's a string, but it doesn't sound like an orchestra of strings. What if we had a second rank that sounds pretty much the same, maybe even slightly stringier, even slightly thinner, yeah? But what we do is we tune it ever so slightly higher. Now on its own you can't hear the difference, really, can you? Ooh, now you can. You can hear it's ever so slightly sharp. It's tuned ever so slightly sharp, deliberately. When I have them both together, we get this lovely. Isn't that nice? Strings, all right? So, as Jeff says, they're beating. Yes, that's right. Those strings, they're causing, because they're slightly out of tune, they're sort of causing like a beating effect, yeah? One's tuned slightly sharper. It's like when you have 18 violinists in a first violin section. Because of the way the violin works, they're not all going to be playing at exactly the same intonation. Some of them will be a microtone too sharp, some of them might be too flat, some of the, you know, they're never going to be around. And then they've got that vibrato thing going on that they do as well. So they're all playing an ever so slightly different note, which is why you get that lovely luscious sound of strings. And this is the organ's way of demonstrating how to do it. Now, to make this sound absolutely perfect, all of these pipes in this division, this is the swell organ. It's called swell because the sound can swell, all right? So what I can do, I can take, does it work if I show you this? Does that move? No, it doesn't move, all right. It moves here if I show you this. Yeah, that moves. This is my Hubwerk screen. Now, check this out. Look at the top of the screen. Look at this thing moving. Do you see that? And that corresponds to what my right foot is doing. Can you see that? My right foot is controlling this pedal here. See this thing here? And it's a volume pedal, basically. I can close it down, I can open it up. And what's that's doing? It's taking the sound, open, and then I could close that sound down. You can see it rather beautifully demonstrated there, but it says Schwellwerk in the middle of the screen there. Check that out, Schwellwerk. Got it? Watch this, it's at 0 at the moment, and as I push the pedal open, it will, all the way up to 127. Why 127? Well, that's MIDI language, from 0 to 127. 128 values, 0. Okay, get it? Kind of clever. Now, because these pipes are they're basically enclosed in a big wooden box. And the front of that wooden box are shutters, big heavy shutters. And they open and close corresponding to what my foot is doing on that pedal there. So when those shutters are closed, no sound is getting out, it's all boxed up. And as I open the shutters, the sound gets out. Isn't that nice? Yeah? Right. So far, so good. Now, what we need something down here in the pedal department. Let me switch my pedals back on. Look, I'm playing pedals and absolutely nothing is happening. So what we need to have down here, we need to have some pedal stops. And I'm going to have some soft pedal stops. That's not very soft. That's quite soft. Okay? Big flute sounds. Now, these are definitely bass sounds. This is middle C on the pedal, okay? That is top C on the pedal. So this is now what's known as a 16-foot stop, all right? So these pipes here, well, not that one, but this pipe here is going to be 16 feet in length. That's about 10 meters. Is that right? I mean, no, hold on, that's wrong, isn't it? I'm getting that wrong. That's 5 meters. 16 feet is 5 meters. Sorry, that's right. Getting that wrong. That's right, because these ones here are 32 feet. They are 10 meters long. Sorry, that's right. I'm getting my conversions wrong. But again, here's a big fat sound. There's a not quite so fat sound. Here's a stringy sound. So nice big thin pipes, if you get it, right? And here we have some reedy pipes. Contrabombard, 32-foot pipes. We'll come back to them in a moment. But here on this organ we have other things called a bourdon 32 and a grand flute or grand flute 32. And what they are now, we're getting to infrasonics here. We're getting nice and low in this sound. So I've got my stringies up here. Close up that box with my right foot. See what I'm doing here? Woohoo! And now I've got a really low pipe. I'm playing middle C on the pedal, but it sounds really low. Let's go down to B flat. Ooh, can you hear that lovely low rumble there? Let me go down to A flat. Oh my goodness me, it's getting even better. Yeah? Where should we go from there? Let's go down to G flat, okay? Oh, isn't that delicious? Let's go down to E. I will open the box as I do it. Let's go down to D. And then we'll go down to bottom C, all the way down here. Close the box back up again. And then suddenly, if you listen carefully, the 32-foot effect starts sort of, you can feel it rumbling around the huge church. Billebeck is an enormous cathedral, about 2 hours north of here. And you can start to hear those sound waves. Because as you get down to there, we're talking like, what are we talking there? We're talking 16 hertz, okay? Which is not a lot. And that's actually beating the air. Boom, 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 boom. So when it starts reverberating around the room, you know, it actually starts causing cross effects and all sorts of wonderful things. It's incredibly clever. Rather clever, isn't it? All good fun. All good fun indeed. So that is the string celeste sound. Celeste is what is called, that's the string. That's the celeste. It's like a celestial sound on top, all right? Now, you can't just do that. You can do that with any kind of pipe. You can have a celeste, a detuned pipe, or a sharp-tuned pipe, or for any other kind of thing. Now, I have actually done something on this organ that doesn't exist on the real organ. Here is a flute sound. Here's another flute sound. Now, they sound rather different, don't they? That sounds a bit more like a fairground organ stop, doesn't it? That thing is called, this thing, it's a bourdon 8-foot, all right? And what it basically is, although it's pitched at 8 feet, that bottom note there, can I get my hands on as well? Haha, check it out, yes I can. That bottom note there, I'm playing down there. Good evening, everybody. That note down there, it's not an 8-foot pipe. It's an 8-foot pitched pipe, but it's not an 8-foot pipe. The pipe is only 4 feet long, but it's stopped. So you have the pipe 4 feet, and there's like a cap or a plunger basically stuck in the top of the pipe, stopping that pipe. So the sound is now, it's like a bottle, like blowing across a bottle, and it does sound a bit like. It does sound a bit like blowing across bottles, doesn't it? Okay? So that's a stopped pipe, and they're normally fluty sounds. And when I was talking about the thing down at the pedal, this sous-bass, that's the same kind of thing. Now they're generally a smoother sound, and they're often wooden pipes. Okay? Often a smoother sound, okay? Which organ is this, says Rafael Lopez. This is Billerbeck Cathedral here in Germany. Lovely organ, lovely instrument. Right, now what you can do, however, what I've done, I've taken something called a Doppelflöte, which is basically this kind of flute. That's basically an open pipe flute, okay, and it's overblown like the kind of flute you'd be playing in an orchestra. You can overblow it. What does that mean? You can create harmonics on it. So actually these pipes, although they say they're 8 foot, well, the bottom octave tends to be 8 foot, but from here, no, it might even only be from here. It's difficult to tell here. I can't tell exactly where it crosses over, but the bottom pipes will still be 8 foot in length. But as we get up here, the pipes will be double that. They will be double. Suddenly they'll be, from there to there, the pipe will be double the length. And that's because these pipes here are overblown. And that gives a big effect. Big, and it sounds like a flute in an orchestra, yes? That's the idea. That's kind of an invention of Aristide de Cavaillé-Coll, although he pinched it from someone else, but never mind. But a big open flute that's overblown. You quite often find them as 4-foot flutes. Does this organ have an overblown 4-footer? I'm not sure that it does. Is this overblown? I don't think so. Is this one overblown? No, definitely not. I'm not sure that this... Oh, here's another one. Yes, yeah. That's you can tell that's overblown. You can hear it puffing on itself. Okay, there you go. Now, what I've done here, on this manual, this is also an overblown flute. But what I have done, I've gone into the back end of Hauptwerk, and I have taken this flute and I have taken a second version of that same flute. I'm not going to tell you how I did it. And I've tuned it slightly flat so that we get something called a flute celeste. Now this is my favorite sound that you could find on any organ. Not many organs have a flute celeste, has to be said, and I think every organ should have one because I think this is just the most delicious sound ever. It's like an ethereal sound. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh. And the great thing about it is you can play almost any kind of chord. And it will just sound perfectly delicious. Now again, that doesn't exist on the real organ of Billerbeck. That's an invention of mine for this thing. I just think that's the most delicious sound. Now there was a question there, someone saying, what is a Rohrflöte? A Rohrflöte. Well, a Rohrflöte is the German translation of chimney flute. Does anybody know what the specifics of a Rohrflöte are? Anyone help Anselm there and tell him what the specifics of a Rohrflöte are? That'd be good fun. It's all flutes, it's all strings, it's all diapasons. Now we've talked briefly about the diapasons there, didn't we? So these are the big principal sounds of your organ when you're playing your Bach. All that kind of stuff. And what you basically have, you make up something that's called a principal chorus. And the principal chorus is, guess what, based on the principal. So at an 8-foot, at a 4-foot, at a 2-foot, maybe even the 16 as well. So a big sound there, but that's nice, but it's very clean. If I add something here called a mixture, see this? Mixture major, if you like. It's actually major, but no matter. Ah, now we get that sparkly organ sound. Okay, now what's causing that? What is a mixture? Well, let's get rid of everything else and just leave the mixture there. Can you hear it changing? Some pipes are cutting out and other pipes are coming in. What it is, this is, it doesn't tell us how many ranks there are there. Let's... Okay, I think we have 3 pipes in this mixture. It's literally that. It's a mixture of pipes at different lengths, at different values, at different pitches. The mixture minor. What's the difference between the mixture minor as you would expect, it's an octave, because one of them says mixture major at 2-foot, which means the lowest note here is going to be a 2-foot pipe, and the mixture minor is going to be a 1-foot pipe at the bottom. Oh my goodness, that's tiny, isn't it? And again, it's a mixture of, I'm going to say 3 pipes, but okay, here's another mixture on the swell division. This has got 5 pipes. Oh, can you hear the differences there? Hear that? Suddenly that cuts down an octave. Get ready? Cuts down an octave. Get ready? Cuts down an octave, all right? Obviously, it has to do that as you keep going up there, these pipes that started at 1 foot of length, yeah? That's about a foot, yeah? So an octave later, it's going to be half a foot. An octave later, it's going to be that. An octave later, it's going to, you know, by the time you're up here, it wouldn't be possible to make a pipe out of metal that would do that sound there, all right? It just wouldn't work, okay? Now, what does this mean? Fünffach, it says there in German. This thing, fourniture, it's the French word for a mixture. 5 ranks, fünffach, 5 ranks, based on a 2 2/3 pitch. What on earth does that mean? What does 2 2/3 mean? There's 2 2/3 there as well. There's 2 2/3 there as well. There's 2 2/3 there as well. What does all this mean? There's 2 2/3, there's 1 3/5, there's 2 2/3, there's 1 1/3, there's 1 1/3. What on earth does all this mean? Well, this is where the fun begins. This is where the fun begins. Oh, 2 of me, we don't want that. This is where the fun begins. Harmonic series. Do you all know about the harmonic series? Yes, I'm sure you do. If you've ever played a Hammond organ, you know exactly what it's all about. Oh, sorry, that's a swell, that's why. If I play a note, actually, if I were to get my trombone, that would be the easiest way of demonstrating what the harmonic series is. I play a note, barp, I parp that note. If I alter my lips ever so slightly, but don't change anything on the trombone, I get this note. If I alter my lips ever so slightly, I tighten my lips, I get this note. If I do it again, I get this note. If I do it again, I get this note. If I do it again, I get this kind of this note. If I do it again, I get this note, and then this note, and then this note, and so... No, sorry, that's wrong. I'm wrong, aren't it? It's that one, 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 that one. And then so on and so on and so on. Now, these things are not true fifths and thirds, all right? Let me show you what I mean. Here's a 4 foot, here's a 2 foot. So in between, if I were to play this, I have to explain this differently. 8 foot, 4 foot. The next harmonic is that note. The next harmonic is this note. So I've got my 8, 4, 2, and then 2 2/3. 2 2/3 is that note there. Where do we get 2 2/3 from? Heh? 2 2/3, that doesn't make sense. Well, yes, it does. Pythagoras' theory of sound and things like this. Sound waves. 1 beating, 2 beating, and then what's the next one? 3, not 4, 3. Now hold on a minute, 3 doesn't make any sense. Yes, of course it does. 3 beating, 2. If you get a guitar string and you watch the sine wave of that guitar string in slow motion, yeah, you will see first harmonic is just a simple sine wave. Then the second one will be twice as thing. Then there will be one with 3. Then there will be one with 4 and 5 and 6 and so on. And that's the harmonic series. Okay, and it's all ratios. So 3 to 2 is the ratio we have for this one. All right. What's 4 times 2/3? The answer is 2 2/3. All right. Just believe me. All right. It's all mathematical. This is why it's so beautiful. So if there we have 8 foot, 4 foot, 2 2/3, and 2 foot. All right. So I'm going to recreate that here. I can close the swell down. All right. Now what I want to do, hold on, I want to do this. Yeah, there we are. I need 1 foot and 2 hands to do this. I'm going to switch on the 2 2/3 on the great manual. All right. Now the bottom pipe, there you are, corresponds to that G there, right? Okay, but it's not going to be tuned exactly the same. Why not? Well, let's find out. Close the swell box. Press this note here. Get ready. Can you hear that ever so slightly out of tune? It becomes more apparent if I go up to what's called the TS. Can I do a TS anywhere else? I have to do it somewhere else. All right, well, hold on. We have to change our ranks and do it here. The TS, that's 1 3/5. So we're now at 5/4. We're up at the however many harmonics it is now. So we've got, sorry, hold on. Where's my first, second, third, fourth. All right? 4/5. Oh my goodness, can you hear the difference there? That note there is much flatter than this note here. This is really weird. What I'm doing, I'm playing a C here with this hand. I can actually show you this from overhead. Hold on, I can show you this. I'm playing a C here on the third manual, but I'm playing an E here. So 8 foot, 4 foot, 2 2/3, 2, 1 3/5. Can you hear that? That's much flatter than this. Yeah? So if I play my chromatic scale starting on E here and C here, yeah? I'm creating my own celeste effect by doing that. Now, if I had an organ that had transposing couplers, I could take that TS sound, okay, and I could couple it, well, I could first of all transpose it down. I could transpose it down a major third, and then I could couple it to a normal 8-foot stop, or a 2-foot stop in this case. And I could have my own little fancy celeste. Wouldn't that be cool? Some people do that when they have these things. All right? This is all very, very, very quick, all right? But I'm trying to explain that these things work like that. If you've ever seen a Hammond organ, the drawbars have a 16, 5 1/3. What the hell is 5 1/3? Well, think about it. Then we have 8, 4, 2, 1 3/5, 1 1/3, 1. All right, so it's basically just the harmonic series. Why have they given us the harmonic series? Well, any sound is made up of harmonics, and some sounds will have more of a fundamental sound. Some will have more of a harmonic range sound. So this clarinety thing, I can recreate the sound of that by using an 8-foot hold on, let me go back to the screen and show you. Here's my crom horn here on the bottom manual. Okay, now I can kind of recreate a clarinety sound here on the swell by taking the 8-foot flute, adding to it a 2 2/3 and a TS. That sort of has a clarinety sound about it. Yeah, it sounds almost more clarinety than that thing, which is basically a clarinet. Yeah, does that make sense? Every sound we hear, my voice, your voice, any musical instrument, any sound is made up of harmonics, all right? And this is where the organ gets all these things from. I was talking about the Hammond organ there. I said 16, 5 1/3, 8, 4, 2 2/3, etc., etc. Where does this 5 1/3 come from? What's 2 2/3 times 2? 5 1/3, all right? And that's where this comes from. So you have 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. So you have 5 1/3, 2 2/3, 1 1/3, 2/3, 1/3, and so on and so on. Yeah? Same thing works for our TS. 1 3/5, an octave lower than that would be 3 1/5. An octave lower than that would be 6 2/5, etc., etc., all right? And these are all incredibly complicated sounding ways of describing the harmonic series, and using those things we can build sounds. Now back to our mixtures. So we have our big mixture, our small mixture, here's a mixture, there's a mixture. Do we have a mixture here? We don't have a mixture on the pedals here. There's a mixture, there's a mixture. What are all these things? These are different, literally mixtures of pipes. pitched at the harmonic series. Oh, sorry, I was supposed to be showing you the screen there, wasn't I? There you are. Mixture, 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 mixture. There's another one. There's another one. All right. Technically, that's a mixture as well. Down here on the pedal, there are no mixtures. So here's 2 mixtures. Okay. Here are 3 mixtures. Well, that sounds nice and fruity. They're not even vaguely in tune with each other. Why not? We'll come back to that in a minute. And okay, now why are all these mixtures, why do they all have different names? Why do they sound different? It depends on their composition. What are the different pipes? What harmonic ranges, ranges of the harmonic series are present in that mixture, and so on and so on and so on. These mixtures are designed to brighten the sound, but also emphasize certain lower frequencies. So, for example, I have my 16, let me get my screen on again. There we are, let's do that. I've got my 16 foot, I've got my 8 foot, my 4 foot, my 2 foot, and my mixtures. Now, this mixture major, this will be accentuating the 16 foot sound. Theoretically, I don't need these sounds in the middle. That sounds pretty bright on its own. Similarly, I don't need the sounds in the middle when I have these 2. Now, obviously, I do want to have them to get the a nice bright sound that we might want for Bach, for example. That was a bit of Bach there. The opening of his G major prelude. I don't play Bach in public because I don't want to. But that's where you get that lovely big principally sound. Now, of course, the purists in the audience are going to go, oh, you can't have all of those stops for a Bach thing. Well, yes, you can. We could add the 16 foot. And as long as I have the big mixture on, you don't notice the 16 foot muddying up there. It's all nice and bright. Yeah, the sound is nice and bright. Now, if I wanted to make that French, I would add something called a cornet, which sounds a little bit. Now, you would never use that for Bach, God. But it sounds nice and French now. It's got sort of a fruity sound. Without. With. Now these things, this cornet, for example, this is kind of designed to take the trumpet to a different level. Or to be used as a solo on its own. Yeah, it's basically 5 pipes in a nice mixture designed to sound like a solo stop. It's quite cute, isn't it? There's one of them up here as well. Sorry, there it is. And it's designed to beef this guy up. How cool is that? How cool is that? Isn't that exciting? Now, that's an awfully long time just to explain the basics of some of the pipes we have at our disposal. What about combinations of pipes? Well, let's do that in a second, once I have said hello to everybody and some news and some thank yous, should there be any to be said. Let's go back in the old chit-chat and say hello to... Where shall we start? Let's start. Bonsoir, Raphaël Lopez. You're obviously from La Belle France. Bonsoir, mon ami. Nikira Naimark is here. Lovely that you are here too. Ian Walker is here. Anselm is here. Mike King is here. Trevor is here. Thomas Martin is here. Hello, Thomas Martin. Or are you French as well? In which case it would be Thomas Martin, which sounds much better. Julian GC is here. Hello to you. Christian Gregory is here. Lovely, lovely. There's Ian Walker. Ian Lavery is also there. Who else be here? Knock. Knock, knock. Who's there? Trick or treat. Yes, you're also there. There's Robert Varner. Hello, Robert Varner. František is here, my good friend. Hello. Bodensehorn. Good evening, Ingo. Lovely, lovely. David Stevens is here, FB is here, Urza is here, Cam, hi Cam, who else be here? Let's just quickly, Alexander, of course Alexander is there, well done. The Green Frog is here, hello Green Frog, I haven't seen you for an awfully long time. French Horn, good evening. Good evening. Bridget is also here, hello Bridget. Xenophilos is also here, our friend from Greece. Liam is here, Liam Oheki. Hello, Liam. Nice that you are here. There's David Ross as well. Sandra is here. Yellowbird is here. Anonymous is here. Tracy is here. Max is here. Andrew Prince is here. That's some of you in the chat this evening. I hope I got most of you. And let's very quickly say thank you to those of you who so far this evening have treated me to a virtual ticket. There's a new message in the chat about virtual tickets. I haven't actually, have I read it myself? Let's have a look. Enjoying the music, question mark. Your virtual tickets, why they are in inverted commas, I'm not sure, are vital. That's true, exclamation mark. Every donation fuels our passion, helps us upgrade, more on that in a second, and brings you even better streams, brings you even better strings. Thank you for your support. And then there's a link to click. It says, are you sure you want to leave YouTube? I say yes, and it's working tonight. Splendid. There we are, that's good. It's working. So yes, so the following people have taken that, and let's have a look. Let's see, who have we got this evening? We have got, in no particular order, Jan. Good evening, Jan. Thank you very much. Jan was actually the first this evening. Hold on, there's a message with Jan's. A request for a hymn from the German hymn book. Well, that's easy enough. Let's do that. Which one is that? Okay, that's fine. We can do that in a moment when I'm demonstrating some stops. Thank you to Jan. Who's next? Alexander. Thank you, Alexander. Ian. Thank you, Ian. Jerry. Hello, Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. And who do we have here? Monica. Ah, lovely. Thank you also to Monica. Right, now to the following people. Also, thank you. Urza, thank you very much to Urza. Who's this? That is... Who's that? That's Nikira, is it not? Is that the one? Naimark. That's you, isn't it? Yes, that is you. Thank you very much indeed. Who's this? This is FB. Thank you, FB. Who's this? Joshua. Joshua T. Thank you very much, Joshua. Thank you for sharing your gift. Thank you for sharing your wallet. Here's Andrew Prince. Thank you very much to Andrew as well. Now, thank you to all of you so far for your tickets. That's very, very kind of you. Now, over on the wish list, I've been rather cheeky and I've put a very expensive piece of equipment on there simply because it would be absolutely amazing to have. Wouldn't everything be amazing to have? You know, boys with toys. We love to have everything. Boys with toys. Always good fun. But it's just a crazy special offer on at the moment. Now, this is a Blackmagic camera. This is a Blackmagic camera. The thing that's doing the actual streaming is a Blackmagic streaming device connected to the Ethernet and streaming off in a hardware thing like that. Over there's a Blackmagic cutting device. What else do I have Blackmagic? I have some other Blackmagic devices kicking about somewhere, I'm sure. But I love the Blackmagic infrastructure. They're absolutely wonderful. Now, their cameras are amazing pieces of kit. And last year, they brought out a new camera called a Pixis. It's like a box camera, like a film camera. Well, no, cinema camera. Film, I mean cinema. And it was stupidly expensive, but bloody good. And it came in 3 versions. You could have one with a Canon EF lens mount, one with an L mount, and one with a PL mount as well, I think. They have drastically reduced the version involving the Canon mount. Now, I have, guess what, Canon lenses. This is a Blackmagic 6K Pro, which uses Canon lenses. And I have a lot of Canon lenses from my day as photographer and hobby photographer and otherwise filmmaker using Canon stuff. Sold the cameras, but kept the lenses. I'm not stupid. So this thing is available at the moment. Instead of 3,000 euros, it's available for just over 2, which is bananas. It really is. It's just absolutely bananas. So I rather stupidly, or rather naughtily, sorry, put it on the wish list. I did already have another full frame Blackmagic camera on there, but it uses L mount lenses, which I don't have any of, so I would have had to go out and buy some L mount, or at least an adapter, which can be expensive as well for EF. But if this new camera, which also has a full frame sensor, what does that mean? Well, it basically means that this lens that's on here at the moment is what the hell is it? It's a 14mm lens. But on that camera, that equates to about a 25mm lens because of something called cropping factor, a crop factor. That is a Super 35 sensor in this camera there. The other one I'm talking about has what's called a full frame sensor, yeah, the huge size sensor. So that means a 14mm lens would be a 14mm image, which means you could probably see the entire room on one lens. Get the idea? And so on and so on and so on. So that's why that camera is currently on the wish list. However, the price of that camera, the cheap price, is only available until I've got a link to it here. There it is. 22nd of July. So that's 9 days. That's next Monday, in other words. That's only available for then. So should you be willing to help us out with something like that? Now, I know it's expensive and it's wholly unnecessary, but it's bloody good. That's why that's on the wish list. And a number of people this evening have already chipped in for that. And I would like to say thank you to you. Let me just quickly work out who that was. Hold on a minute. There we are. I want to go there. That's the one. People on the wish list this evening. So it started with Orgelhase, our friend Orgelhase. Thank you very much for Orgelhase. Thank you very much, STBE, whoever you are. STBE, I'm not sure who you are, but thank you very much indeed. Jeffrey Ford was very generous earlier. Thank you very much to Jeffrey. And the Platts gang have just been generous as well, just about half an hour ago. So thank you to you so far this evening. You have been helping out on the wish list since that new price has been up there. So fingers crossed, we have a week's time. We might be able to get that. I'm not in a position where I can go and order it in advance, pay for it in advance. That's unfortunately not the case at the moment. The Gartshores are kind of broke. What is it? Says, who's saying? Mike King. Mike, thank you for your super chat, Mike, by the way. It's called the Blackmagic Pixis 6K camera with the Canon EF mount. There you are. That's what it's all about. And yes, it can be used with this system here. It doesn't have HDMI out, but it has SDI 12G out. And that can, of course, be converted to HDMI to be used in this situation here as well. Actually, it would be a much better camera for streaming than the one that's here at the moment. This thing that I'm using here is actually a perfect camera to be used outdoors because it has built-in ND filters. Does that make any sense to you whatsoever? Don't worry if it doesn't. It does to me, and it does to some of you out there. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. Thank you very much for your generosity. Back to the music. Now, let's talk about some combinations of stops. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put the screen on and I'm going to put myself back in the corner there. Now, you can't really see the pedal pipes, all right? Let me just quickly get rid of myself there. What am I cutting out? I'm cutting out the bourdon 32, the flute 16, the sous-bass 16, and the flute 8. All right, that's what we're cutting out there. All right, the ones on the left say grande flute, principal bass or principal bass, and contrabass. All right, so that's all you're missing out on over there. And of course, I'm covering up the tuba. That is the tuba there. You can take the tuba at 16, 8, and 4 and put it on either 1, 2, 3, 4 manual or on the pedals. You can also put it on the pedals as a 2-foot stop, which means you have it as a solo. Yeah, so that's transposing it up 2 octaves rather than having it normally on the pedal. That could be used as a nice little solo down on the pedals. Anyway, that's what I'm covering up by doing this. Okay? Now, what we're going to do here, we're going to play, this was, who was this? This was Jan that requested number 170 in the hymn book. And what we're going to do, I'm going to show you something. We're going to take some flutes, some soft flutes, this one here, an 8-foot flute on the swell. And I'm going to add to it a 2-foot flute. And that gives a nice tinkly sound, I think you will agree. It's sort of... And what I'm basically doing, I'm missing out an octave. I could have an 8-foot, 4-foot, and a 2-foot. But if I miss out the 4-foot, then I'm basically creating a hole between the two. Get the idea? It's quite cute, isn't it? I think you will agree. Now, actually, what I will do instead, I'll do it down on the first manual. I have a Rohrflöte and a Waldflöte. Okay, and up here on this manual, I will have my 16-foot flute together with my 4-foot flute. Which is kind of exciting stuff. Mike King just looked at the camera. It looks very nice. There's also a 12K one. 12K would be unnecessarily stupid and expensive. If I were making films for Netflix, then a 12K one would be good. Yes, but we're not doing that, so I'm not going to bother. Now, what I'm also going to do, I'm going to take this and that down on the pedal. All right. Actually, no, we're going to do that. Here's a piece of music requested by Jan. Now, these are just flutes, all right, but we're missing out an octave. What I might do at some point is up here on the swell, take away the 4-foot and add the 2-foot. So now we're missing out 2 octaves. So there's no 8-foot, there's no 4-foot. I've just got 16 and the 2. And that's an even more tinkly sound. That's rather cute, isn't it? Let's start with that. There you are, a cute little version of number 170. That's a song you would sing for Gloria in a mass. It's a rather cute little song, isn't it? I like it a lot. And that's the kind of tinkly effect you can have with just a couple of stops. Tinkly sounds. Kind of cool, I think you will agree. Now, what about other combinations of stops? We've already talked about the sort of the principal chorus. Let me leave the screen on for you. Principal chorus, which is basically that. Can't I take this and add the trumpet to it? Well, yes and no. The purists would hate you for doing that. They would absolutely go mental and kill you. Now, what style of organ is this? Is there a certain kind of style this? Well, let's have a look at the swell division. That's the green stops here in the middle. This is the swell manual, the third manual. Look at the names of the stops. Bourdon, viola, octavin, fourniture, basson, trompette, harmonique, hautbois, clarion, voix humaine. That's all very French. Now, over the years, you've heard me talking about French romantic organs and French romantic music and French romantic style. Well, yes, all of this stuff is absolutely delicious. And this is all about, you know, this is what this kind of music, these kinds of organs are about. French romantic is a very exciting style and a very interesting way of registering stuff. French romantic organs were kind of like the first organs worldwide where you could, you know, be guaranteed constant wind pressure. You could be guaranteed comfort of playing, and you know, because of various pneumatic machines that had been invented, which meant it was now comfortable to play everything coupled together without really having to press into the keys and kill yourself. And you know, the invention of things like the overblown flutes and theoretically the overblown trumpets, kind of. And this gave rise to a different style of organ music and definitely a different style of registration, French romantic stuff. And it's absolutely delicious. Now, I think down in my registrations for this organ, I think somewhere I have, there it is, clickety-pop. Oh, why is that taking a while to think about it? That's fine. You take a while to think about it. All right, perfect. Now, I'm going to leave the registrations up on screen for you. While I play, can I get the pedals in there as well without cutting too much out? Yeah, why not? Now, this is a wonderful style of music. I love this. Then one of the best pieces to demonstrate this is something called the pièce héroïque by César Franck. César Franck was a wonderful composer, an early composer of French romantic music, really. And what we have here is a very distinct style of registration. Let me tell you what we've got. Down in the pedal, let's start there. We've got a lot. All right, we've got all the 16 foots, all the 8-foot stuff from the pedal. That's a big, fat, boomy sound. I've coupled the first manual, that's this one here, the Rook positive. Now, there's not much there, there's only 3 stops there, but they're all 8-foot, see that? And I've coupled the third manual. The third manual is huge. I've got basically full swell here. So I've got a deep sounding 16-foot flute. I've got all the 8-foots with the exception of the Célestes. Pretty much all the 4-foot stuff. I've got all the mutations without the tierce, which just sounds too French classical for my liking. I've got the 16, 8 and 4-foot reeds. I'm not using the voix voix humaine because you wouldn't hear it anyway, but it doesn't belong to this sound. And on the grate, I've got 16, 16, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. All the 16s. And the 8-foot stuff. Now, hold on, I've got all the 16s in the pedal and all the 16s on the grate. Surely they're going to muddy themselves up. But the piece of music is written in such a way that they don't fight with each other. Now, this is a menacing piece of music. It's a train ride. It's a menacing train ride. Yeah, here's the train coming, and here's the baddie. Yep, tying the damsel in distress to the train tracks, that kind of stuff, all right? Now, this piece of music progresses. We add, at a certain point, we add some trumpets to get a nice parpy sound, a sort of almost a fanfare. Okay, we go back to our fancy sound that we had before, and then eventually we get to a very French sound, which is here on the swell. It's the trumpet, harmonic, and the oboe. Now, on their own, they're quite thin on this organ, so I've added a couple of 8-foot stops to warm that sound up. I've got the flutes on the grate. Okay, we're ignoring that because we're not using this manual at all. I've actually coupled this flute. I've actually coupled that down to the grate to get as much of that flute harmonic sound as I possibly can. And on the pedals we have something like timpani. Can you hear that? And if I play that staccato, it almost sounds like timpani. And that's a lovely sound. You hear that in a moment when we get to it. After that, we get back to our menacing sound, but sort of in the distance, the timpani are doing all this kind of. So it's the timpani and the double basses. Get the idea? I like Anselm's thinking, by the way. Anselm in the chat, he says, 50 of you at $20 each. I like the sound of that. I like you, Anselm. You've got the right kind of marketing skills there. Anyway, so we build and build and build and build. We get very menacing at one point. Lots of menacing. Now we're using the swell boxes here. See what my feet are up to there? We're using this to go rumph and get some lovely sort of crescendos going in the sound. And then the whole piece of music it gets louder and louder. We add things to it. And then eventually we get full organ at the end. And I've included the chamades on that just to really parp things up. So here then is a piece of music in the French Romantic style using French Romantic registrations. Pièce héroïque by César Franck. Sorry, I got lost in the middle of that. I was thinking about my registrations. Let me go back a bit. Sorry about that. Haha, pièce héroïque, a wonderful piece of music. I love that. It's a very dramatic and exciting, heroic piece, hence its title. It really is rather grand, and it shows off these registrations rather beautifully. It's a pretty good organ to be doing these registrations on. Not bad at all. Yeah, exciting stuff. Not bad, eh? I'm talking about the registrations. Ignore my playing. There was a bit of improvising in there somewhere along the way. You've got to improvise along the way. That's just the way these things work. What's happening over here, ladies and gentlemen? Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Any additions to what's been going on? See if my marketing speak has had any effect on what's been happening at all. Indeed it has. Our friend Joe, thank you so much, Joe. Joe has chipped in over on the wish list as well. Thank you very much, Joe. That's lovely of you. Thank you very much. Very kind indeed. I like the amount. Is there a reason for that? I'm sure it's just in the translation from dollars to euros, but that's a lovely thing. Thank you, Joe, and thank you to all of you so far. Very kind indeed. Now we've got like, you know, pretty much a week to go. It doesn't all have to happen tonight, but the sooner it happens, the better. Exciting stuff. Exciting stuff indeed. Wow. Thank you, everybody. We're getting there. Now, it's coming up to midnight, but we're nowhere near done tonight. We've only been talking about a church organ so far. We haven't talked about a theatre organ. Now, don't worry, we're not going to start again from the beginning, but I'm going to load up a theatre organ for you, and we're going to look at some basic, very basic. Actually, let me show you this as it loads up. It loads very quickly. I have a very fancy machine here. Ping, there we are. Now 1 million stops have just appeared on the screen. Don't worry about the stuff that I'm covering up there. That's not much. It's just basically my swell pedals, which you can see are moving all together there, and a couple of stops on the top manual. But don't worry about that. Now, it looks very overwhelming, but a theatre organ, well, we all know what theatre organ consoles look like. So this is a 4-manual theatre organ with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pipe chambers. What does that mean? Well, rather than have divisions like a classical church organ, the ranks of pipes aren't arranged by manual, so you don't have stops that only appear there, only appear there, only appear there, etc., etc. All the pipes are arranged in different chambers. So I'm not sure how these are named, but there's going to be like a main chamber, a solo chamber, a foundation chamber, a whatever chamber, okay? So all the sounds and things, they're all arranged in different chambers, in different rooms, and all of those rooms have swell pedals attached to them. Now I've coupled all the swell pedals to work together. It just makes life easier, all right? Now, it looks very overwhelming, but basically the way this console works, it's what's called a horseshoe console. You see all the stops arranged around the organist in a horseshoe. The pedal stops are all there, so that's the ones you play with your foot. You see the keys moving with there as I play them. These stops here are actually from about here, and some of these here. This is called the accompaniment, this is the bottom manual. Over here we have the grate stops. So if you're playing with your right hand on the grate, you can faff about with your left hand on these stops here for the grate. These stops over here are the 3rd manual. These called what's it called in this? It's called the bombard. These are the bombard stops. And then this little row of stops here, between these silver rail things you see here, these are the solo stops, and these are the ones for the 4th manual. There's not very many there, all right? So we've got a solo manual, a bombard manual, a grate manual, and an accompaniment manual. And basically, you can find pretty much the same sounds on all 4 of those manuals at any one time. For example, I'm just going to switch the tremulants on. These little stops down here, that makes the wobbly sound of a theatre organ. But if you look here, for example, on the bombard manual, I have 1, 2, 3 tibia clausa. Okay, that's that lovely big wobbly theatre organ sound we're all used to. Here on the grate, if you check around all my 8-foot stops, oh, there they are there, 1, 2, 3 tibias. Exactly the same sound. Down here on the accompaniment manual, I also have I also have those three, and up here on the solo manual, guess what I have? I have them as well. So I'm actually just swapping manuals, as you can see on the screen there, and I'm playing exactly the same stops. Why do you want to do that? Well, the idea is you can have any colors of stops on any manual at any time. So I have my accompaniment manual, the bottom manual here. This is for my oompa oompa. Okay, get the idea? Okay, and on the second manual, my great manual, where I have the most number of stops, I can have a lovely big solo-y sound. In this case, George Wright's famous whorehouse sound. That's what he called it. He called it that because it sounds like a heavy smoker singing in the background. Which is kind of cute. Up here on this manual, I have chosen to have the George Shearing sound. I have a vibraphone and a piano. And up on this manual, I've got some cheeky little solo stuff. I have what's called a harp, a marimba, 3 different xylophones, an 8-foot and a 4-foot tibia. And 3 things here called a kinura, a musette, and a crummet, which are horrendous sounding names for horrendous sounding stops. That sounds like heavy smokers doing their thing, doesn't it? But they add a sort of a sawdusty edge to the sound, if you like. And these are what are called color stops. If I take the 3 of them again, add the tremulants, add a 4-foot thing to, you get a cheeky sound. Let me just quickly get a registration ready. Get rid of some of this crap there and do that again. That's a very sort of typical theatre organ sound. They're called color reeds. You can't see that there, but I have a 4-foot piccolo here and those 3 things there, all right? And it's a cheeky sound. So, for example, what would be a good theatre organ tune? All right, get the idea, all sorts of fun and games there. Quite often you will find sounds on a theatre organ sound very good if you have any solo stop, let's say even something big like a tuba horn or the tuba mirabilis, and add a 4-foot piccolo to it. It just lifts the sound and gives it a different sort of edge. I love that. That's a little The Wedding of the Painted Doll, well done. Captain R. Trevithick, and Knock as well, the Puppenhochzeit, well done. The Wedding of a Painted Doll. Yeah, if you're playing a theatre organ for the first time and you don't know what to do, choose one of the red stops at 8 foot and then add a 4-foot tibia to that sound and you will have something rather delicious. It works with pretty much all of them. Here's the English horn even. It works with pretty much all of them. If I have it with the saxophone, the French horn, kind of cute. Now, something a theatre organ has that not many other organs have is different kinds of vox humana. Check out, well, let me see, what manual can we do it on? Here on the second manual, check this out. 1, 2, 3, 4 different vox humanae. Why are they? Oh, it's the bottom manual, sorry. Now, if you're listening in stereo on headphones or good speakers, you should hear the difference of the sound in the different chambers. Check this out. Now, not only have we got them in different chambers, there are different positions around the theatre, they also have different vowel sounds. Okay, all 4 of them together. Isn't that gorgeous? Now what's giving that wobbly effect are these things down here, all the tremulants. If I get rid of the vox humana tremulant, sorry, there are many vox humana tremulants, well, there should be 4 separate ones, sorry, that's it. That doesn't sound terribly exciting at all. Add the tremulant. Now, does it actually sound like a vox humana? I don't know. Something else you will find on a theatre organ are string stops. They tend to have yellows coloured, excuse me, yellow colours. And like any other, let me turn the trems off for a second here. Like any other organ, let's go to the great department here. In fact, I think all the strings are lumped together, apart from down here. Yeah, we have a gamba. We have a violed orchestra. And each of those have a celeste. Now those are rather lovely strings on their own. There's something here called strings 2 ranks. That's only available as a string with its celeste, I think. So all the strings together, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ranks of them. Add the tremulants. Now for the fun and games, add all 6 ranks of strings, I'll do it up on this manual, and all 4 ranks of vox humanae together, and you get the best sound on any theatre organ you can have. Close the swells. Isn't that just gorgeous? And the best thing is I can add a coupler, I can add a sub-octave coupler which plays that note at the same time. I'm sorry, wrong. My bloody thing here. There we are. And an octave coupler which adds the higher one too. So now I have 3 octaves of that. Not a tibia in sound, that's just strings and vox humanae. Now if I add to that, an 8-foot tibia, then we get a huge. So basically I've got 16, 8 and 4 tibias, strings and vox humanae. Isn't that gorgeous? Isn't that deliciously gorgeous? I think that's amazing. Now the other day Bridget was asking about what do chimes mean on an organ. Well, literally chimes, or cathedral chimes as they're called here. Yeah? Those are actual physical chimes with rather a lot of noise, as you can hear, which they haven't been denoised very well. You can hear the noise of the cinema. That's interesting. I haven't tried that before. We also have a piano. Now, how on earth is this possible? Well, we've got vibraphones like we had before. We have a glockenspiel. 3 xylophones. 1, 2, 3. 3 xylophones. Yeah, why do we have all of these things? Up here we have even things called tuned sleigh bells. Isn't that bananas? Why do we have all these things? Down here we have things like a snare drum. A large snare drum. Tambourines. Castanets. A Chinese block. A tom-tom. A sand block, which is pretty crummy. How does that work? Well, yes, these things are electro-pneumatic. So whether by pressing a key it sends a signal to open a valve under a pipe, or it sends a signal to move a hammer towards a percussion instrument, it doesn't make any difference, which is why theatre organs can do it all. Isn't that lovely? I'm not going to go into too much detail on all the rest of theatre organ stuff, other than to play some music on one. Okay? I love it. What do you think? We're going to go into theatre organ in great detail in a separate video one day, but that was just a very, very quick checkout for you there. Let's play a piece of music I don't think I've ever played, at least I don't think I have. I will dedicate it to all of you, because you're all lovely. Now, the sound I have here, let me tell you about the sound I have. You can see it actually. Accompaniment is this stuff here. So what do I have? I have an open diapason, I have soft strings, I have an oboe horn, and that's it. I also have... That's it, sorry. Now down on the pedal I have, it looks like it's quite big, a tibia clausa 16, a diaphonic horn, which sounds like something you need to go to the doctor with. I'm sorry doctor, I can't come to work tomorrow, I have a diaphonic horn. And the bourdon 16, that's all I have in the pedals. Up here on the great manual, that's this one, I have tibias 8 and 4, some strings and some tibias. Lots of tibias at higher levels, 2 and 2/3, remember them from earlier, and 2. Up here I have tibias 8, 4 and 2. And on the 4th manual I have my strings and vox humana. Oh, sorry, on the great I have the vox humanas as well, all of them. Vox humanae, plural. Kind of cute, don't you think? Here's a song from the 30s. Isn't that cute? Red sails in the sunset. Why are they red sails? Well, they're coloured red because of the sunset. Simple as that. Isn't that a cute tune? I don't even know who wrote that. I only know it's from the mid-30s. Over to Urza, who will tell us who wrote it when she does the set list for later on this evening. Lovely, 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 lovely music, lovely tune. I think you will agree. Let's finish off with a fast one and some more jazzy sounds from the old Wurlitzer here. This is a Fox special Wurlitzer sample set. Rather delicious. Rather delicious indeed. And what shall we have? Actually, let's not have all that fast. Let's have a cute one, but we need my jazzy registrations for this. Now the jazzy registrations involve much more of the check this out. Down in the bottom manual now, the accompaniment, I have two things here. I have what's called a harp and what's called a marimba. It's the same instrument, but the harp and the marimba are an octave apart. All right, check that out. Now we've got... Okay, now it's basically the same instrument. It's all just a marimba, but there are a couple of them. You can even have the marimba repeating itself as a mandolin. Oh no, that's awful. What's that supposed to be? The mandolin is the piano without the attack. Oh, sorry, I always thought that was something else. Oh well, I take that back. That's weird. I can have these things repeat themselves. Which sounds like false teeth rattling in a glass late at night, doesn't it? But anyway. Now, if you have them down on the accompaniment manual, what you can do here is it's like it's like a rhythm guitar in a big band, all right? Without them, check this out. Here they are without. That sounds quite cute. It's a nice sort of stringy sound, chuffing along there. But if I add my harp and my marimba again, isn't that cute? Yeah, now we have some a bit of rhythm going there. And here's my naughty girls again. Oh, in fact, no, let's change to something else. Nice sound there. Let's add. I've got these guys. And all that down there. Lovely. A bigger bass this time, more of a parp. And we can play some fun tunes. This is actually by Fats Waller. And he was taking the mickey out of a tune that was called 4 or 5 times. There was then a tune called 5 or 6 times. And Fats Waller came up with one called 6 or 7 times. And judging by the number of illegitimate children Fats Waller had, he must have been doing it 6 or 7 times a night. 6 or 7 times. I don't think I've ever managed 6 or 7 times. Right, let's go back and have a quick look and see if I've been missing out on any naughtiness this evening. No is the answer to that. So Andrew Prince was the last to chip in on PayPal this evening, and over on Bumamacopa, let me just double check. I'm not missing anyone. The last one on Buy Me a Coffee was Joe earlier on. So there we have it. Splendid. Well, thank you very, very much, ladies and gentlemen. You're very generous. You're very kind. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that Anselm had the right idea, and we're going to get some bit more of the old sponsorship during the rest of the week. That would be kind of cool. It would be deliciously wonderful, but entirely up to you. So I will thank you all in advance for your help, for your assistance. I will also wish you a wonderful start to the new week, and hope you have a fun, relaxing time. Shall we finish with some more Fats Waller tonight? Yeah, let's finish with a handful of keys. And it's not the jingly type that you open doors with. It's keys, in other words, piano keys, a handful of keys. Will this work on this organ? It should. This could be very, very fast, but let's find out. Okie dokie, boys and girls. See you all very soon. Night, night. Have a good one. Handful of keys and not a spot of Colombian marching powder in sight. Back in the 90s, never mind, no, different story, different times, exciting times. All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed this evening's demonstration of what organ pipes, organ sounds can do, and some secret hidden registration tips. Obviously, I'm not giving you all of my registration tips. That would be cheating. Like I say, I wish you all a very pleasant week. Have a good start, and we'll see you when we see you. Night, night, everybody. Bye-bye.